Hello and welcome. My name is Tolola Falashe, and with me is
Olu Benson.
Hello Olubensin. Tell us, who are we?
Well, our platform is called Decrypting Relationships,
Yep, yep, yep,
and
yep,
we are we are
yep.
two people who have been married to different people for years, and we have a passion for marriage and relationships. And the idea is for us to just put a few words out there from our personal experiences to see if we can encourage people. We're not trained counselors, nor are we certified in any relational matters for us to give any advice. We're just literally laying our heart bare to the public to see if anyone could benefit from some of the topics that we're talking about. So that's really who we are.
I tried to do some sound effects there, like they do like with the professionals, but I think I got it a bit wrong. But anyway, it is good to be
We'll
back, isn't
find
it?
out after the fact.
It's good to be back. It's good to be back. So this week we are talking about conflict resolution, aren't we? Um,
Yes.
I just to bring some people up to speed. If you haven't been following us, maybe this is the first time you're listening. Like Olu said, we come with a lot of passion. We come with the idea of sharing our own experiences that will, lend a hand to people out there. And currently, we're talking about the discovery stage. So this is where boy meets girl, like each other. They want to go kind of like exclusive. I think that's what they used to call it. I don't know what they call it
I
these days.
think
But
so.
anyway,
We call it courtship.
exactly. Courtship period. So this is where you're discovering, and we have been talking about various things, supporting one another, aspirations, backing each other up in when
Mhm.
there's third party conflicts, things like that. But today we are going to talk about conflict resolution between the two parties, discovering and, courting and finding out more about one another, right?
Yes, we are.
So, as we were preparing for this, Olu, we talked about perhaps discussing, obviously, when we're discovering, you know, discovering the new relationship, and it's like really
Mhm.
fresh, it's exciting. And
Yeah.
there is that moment in the journey where you have your first fight.
Yes.
Yes. And it can be a real revelation, can't it? That first
Yes, it
fight
could
can
be.
be a real revelation. Talk a little bit about what your thoughts on that.
Well, I think like anyone who's been in a relationship seems to be aware of when you're in this exclusive relationship. The idea is for you to always be on your best performance. You want to put your best foot forward. So the idea is like you just want to showcase the best version of you to this other person. And there's this risk of you thinking that the other party is perfect because they never put a foot wrong. So can you imagine the very first time that you actually realize that you have a fight? That must be like a new level of revelation to say, oh my goodness. So we do have a difference of opinion. And I
Hmm.
think it's very healthy to actually come to that point earlier on in the relationship than later on.
Hmm.
Because when what I've released from the people I've spoken to recently who are in more recent or younger relationships, and those of us who are quite old school about it, is the fact that whilst you're in that relationship and you're trying to do the best that you can be, there is also a programming of the mind that you're not supposed to have a conflict because conflicts are not nice at all. Nobody likes an argument. Nobody likes a fight. So everybody wants to rather just avoid the topic. And the reason we're trying to get into is to say that it actually having a good, chingwang or whatever they call it now is
Hmm.
actually a good ingredient to mature in a relationship
Hmm.
because then you're able to understand how emotionally mature you both are,
Hmm.
how how well you deal with each other's distresses, how well you can sit down and talk through a misunderstanding as opposed to thinking, oh well, it's the end of the world, or if this happens then we can't be getting along so well. Because we have conflicts and we will always have conflicts. And this is where we're coming from. So this will be like my opening comment to that topic. So yeah, so it's a good thing to do. And I think as we go on, we will give her an insight, and maybe possibly if we remember how we handled our very first conflict too in our relationship. So what would be your take on getting to that stage of your very first fight? What was yours?
Yeah, absolutely. So before I go there, I think you picked on something that was very powerful, and that's people's appetite for conflict. Some people have a healthy appetite for conflict, don't they? Because like you said, they like to get things out in the open. There's no point stewing over it. If something is unclear and, you need it to maybe you need to talk through it, and and even if it means having a little bit of a conflict or a fight about it, then that's fine, right? But I think some people just don't like any form of confrontation whatsoever, isn't it? So I think that was a very powerful nugget, very interesting insight. And I think what I just wanted to say about that is at this stage when people are courting, I think it's a very useful to understand the conflict, for want of a better phrase, conflict appetite of the person that you're with, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And also, it's an opportunity for you to understand their temperaments, because there is a thing that I heard it when I was much younger, and I've proven it to be true, that you don't know someone until you've actually lived with them. And because we as Christians, we don't encourage cohabiting whilst you're courting, you need to make sure that as much as possible you're true to that relationship by being your real self. And the only way the relationship can mature is the fact that each person needs to remember that you're two individuals who are set in your ways. You grew up from different backgrounds, so your orientation will be different to the other person's. So naturally, there will be conflicts of interest, conflicts of understanding of circumstances, the differences in the interpretation of things depending on your upbringing. So if you're not true to that relationship, how do you then create a common ground for both of you to understand, come to an understanding of, okay, because if you grew up in an environment that was just aggressive, that everything seemed to be, they have it in for me, and you're in a relationship with somebody where even if you have a misunderstanding, it's okay to have it, but let's talk through it. So you can imagine if this person who's come from a calmer background came to someone who's just everything is we have to fight it through. And you're like, okay, I don't get this. Must everything really end up in a fight? So this is a good opportunity for you to then start understanding the emotional side of the relation, because it's not just about the physical. It's all this emotional intelligence that you accumulate whilst you're courting or having this exclusivity in that relationship that actually guides you to know how well to build on that foundation, because these are all part of laying a good and solid foundation for that relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's like you said, it's a really good opportunity to determine, to observe and determine, have some awareness, from both sides, the temperament, like you said, I think that's a very important thing, the temperament. Okay, so you asked me what was my sort of like my own experience type thing with like first argument, first fight, and I think, and I can share this, and because like I said, we share our stories, but we make sure that obviously our spouses are happy. They've got some level of concern. So Falake is really happy.
We respect their opinion or their
absolutely,
feelings.
Their feelings, absolutely. But yeah, Falake, I remember when we were courting, our very first misunderstanding. I can't remember exactly the details, but I know because my background is. I grew up. My mom raised me, right, but my dad was there, obviously, but they were separated. Now, my mom had a lot of cousins and a lot of sisters, right? So I grew up in an environment where you know, my aunties, you know, a lot of aunties and you know, aunties, nieces and stuff like that, and so and cousins, girls, they were very expressive. They expressed how they felt, you know, with a lot of vigor, and oftentimes, you know, it was almost, there was, you could see that there was fun, there was banter, but there was also intensity, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And as the only boy, you know, I kind of like felt completely out of place, you know. So my approach then was I'm very softly spoken in a conflict situation, you understand. So when
Okay.
Folake had an issue, and I kind of like, you know, I almost sat down like an old man, crossed my legs, and you know, and I just said, oh, you know what, I didn't appreciate XYZ. I didn't like it the way da. And she looks at me and
Yeah.
goes, wow, you said that with so much calm. She didn't say it exactly at that time, but it was later
Mm.
on that I really liked the way you said it with a lot of calm. Now, I didn't realize what, like, it goes back to the temperament thing you said earlier on. You
Mm-hmm.
understand? She picked up and then even pointed out my temperament to me. You understand? She said
Yeah.
she really appreciated that. And that please don't change, you know, don't go all you know. So that was my own experience.
Okay.
Yeah. What
Well,
was
I
yours? Did you
guess
have any?
speaking to mine,
Mm-hmm.
I think from, if you've been following this platform, you realize I'm a I'm a very emotive person, and I'm very excitable. So that's my personality. So whether I'm joyous or I'm not so happy, or
Mm-hmm.
my voice is always sounding excited. So I think what's the word now? Genetically too, I have a very loud voice because my father has a very loud voice. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm the kind of person that I'm just loud. That's just the way it is. It's not because I mean any harm. But talking or looking back to when my husband Shea and I started out, I was someone, I'm sure I mentioned it earlier, and I was someone who really advocated for us to have that first fight,
Yeah, you said
because
so.
I just thought he was, you know, there is no way. It wasn't because anybody told me, because that was the interesting thing. My parents were so mature with their arguments that if they ever argued, you could hear them going on about something. Give it an hour or two, they're back to normal, like nothing went down.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine my shock when I grew up and left home, and I realized that people have misunderstandings and not talk for days. I was like, really? Does this really happen? Because that wasn't how I grew up. So when I saw that as a healthy thing, because we all knew when they disagreed with each other's their viewpoints, they'll talk you through. They could raise their voices because, like I said, my father has a very loud voice. It wasn't because it meant any harm; it's just the way he is, and I didn't see that as offensive. So I grew up in an environment where if something was wrong, let's talk you through.
Mm-hmm.
Don't sleep on it. Don't harbor any grudges about it. Don't become so so negative to the point where you then bear a grudge for days with your partner that you don't talk. So I was embraced that. So when I met my now husband, and we had been at this thing for like almost 3 months, and we'd never really had any difference of opinion, or expressed, not that we didn't have, but we'd never really expressed any difference of opinion. I had to sit him down and say, man, if this thing is going to work, we need to argue. I'm sure my husband thought something was wrong with me. Like, no, I know what I'm saying. I don't want a situation where, do I know if you're the kind of person who broke a bottle, if you got mad at whomever you were arguing with? I just wanted to make sure that I could handle your extreme emotions. And you need to know that you can handle mine. So when I'm mad at you or you're mad at me, both of us need to be in a position where we can be true to that and actually see if it's a healthy thing for us to be together. Because I have heard of relationships where you really see people throwing knives and breaking bottles, and I'm like, so I wasn't ready to risk that. So I had to do that. So when the real argument then happened, I don't even think I remember, because I was so pent up for this thing to happen that I'm sure that when it actually happened, it wasn't just a big deal to me because I was waiting for it to happen. So that is why I know our differences coming in. And luckily, my husband is a very soft-spoken person. He's the kind of person that wants to chill about it. Like, no, we have to talk about it. The Bible says, do not let the sun go down on your anger. So let's get into the whole thing. And yeah, So yeah, so that's me. That's just my personality, because I don't bear grudges. So if I don't talk you through with you now, give it another day or two once you see you're cooling down, and then come back and say, well, let's talk about. In 2 days' time, I've moved on. I can't remember the details, so I then sound like I'm lying about how I felt or how the whole thing went down. So let's talk about it whilst it's fresh. But different people have different ways. Some people can't deal with it when it's still hot on the table. So you need to respect that if you have a partner who just can't deal with getting through an argument when they're still very mad, learn to deal with it. Give them the cooling space. Let them go away and cool off, and then come back and talk about it. But I think the crux of what I'm trying to say is, don't let it linger to the point where it's not resolved, and then it becomes an elephant in the room that starts to build up into this monster later on. I think I've said a lot on that for someone who doesn't remember our first argument.
Yeah, it's quite insightful. It's quite insightful because it's the title of our or the name of our podcast is Decrypting Relationships, and it's all about finding insights, really, and that's what we're sharing. We're sharing some insights, aren't we? In understanding how So for example, if when Falaki and I had our first argument, and I was shouting the place down, I mean, the insight there would be, that's how I deal with conflict. You understand? Maybe either because I have a loud voice or because I'm so emotionally wound up, and if that's the case, then I think what Falaki should be doing is, okay, you know what? Maybe I should even ask how then say let's just give that scenario. Say for example, Falaki was your friend, and we had our first fight, and then I kind of like raised my voice, and Falaki came to and said, "Oh, you know what? We had the first fight yesterday. Oh, my goodness, this guy was shouting, and he was scary to look at. He was really raising his voice, and I mean, what advice, insights would you give her?
Advice? I think you need to both cool down and then go back to address it. Because,
like you said earlier on, go back and address it. Yeah.
Different people have different reasons for. Like I said, mine is a combination of both. I'm a very emotive person, and I have a loud voice, so you can imagine. But the person I'm married to understood the fact that even when I was calm, my kids now tell me, they come, Mom, are you, when I'm on the phone? I told you earlier that when I'm on the phone, even my kids come, Mom, are you fighting with the person? I'm like, no, I'm not fighting. This is my voice, so just leave me alone. You should know by now, after 20-something years of living with me. So that is me. So sometimes people don't even know whether I'm just mad or I'm just happy or So, but if you know that this was out of character for the person, then you need to wait for the person to calm down and then address the issue with them. And how you also behave in that situation would also, because this is the bit that sometimes people never tell you. There's a saying in our language, because we're both from the same, that nobody ever tells you their version of the story and sound guilty. Sometimes people are aggravated because whomever they're trying to express a simple matter to has a way of winding them up. When you know how to press the wrong buttons on your partner, sometimes you rile them up to the point where they lose their composure. But if I did that to my partner, I will not come back and tell you all the sniggering things I was doing or saying to him whilst he was trying to express himself. And then I'll come and tell you, can you imagine he was so mad at me that I was so scared for my life? I wouldn't tell you. Maybe I was calling him names or making him feel very small because he decided to. So there are always two sides to every story. So if that were to happen, I will not jump on the wagon and say, how dare he? You better be scared for your life or whatever, watch out for yourself, because you were not there. You don't know what the girl did. You're my friend. If this is my friend who came to tell me that version of the story. Because I've handled that later on in life. I've been in a position where I was so naive and I assumed because I knew this person who was my friend, I trusted them, that whatever they told me had to be true. And I'd found that over the years that a lot of people never they will never tell you anything that went wrong and make themselves look bad. It's always the other person's fault. Everything is always the other person's fault. And I've learned from emotional intelligence with maturity and whatever. So you need to learn to advise people and be objective, not subjective, irrespective whether they came wailing, whether they came doing whatever they do, all the dramas that we do. Please try as much as possible to be objective and just give the other person the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing I was looking for when I asked the question is, we've talked about respecting one another in relationship, especially at this stage of discovery, showing complete respect and care. And so I just think part of that evaluation can come from this first fight scenario that we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
You can almost sense that, wow, I mean, the way he reacted or the way she reacted, because it could be either way, right? It could be a he or a she. Is there something here we need to talk? Like you said, we definitely need to talk about, what went down. But is there an occasion to highlight and say, you know what, you were very animated. If there was a situation where maybe one of the parties felt there was a bit of an overreaction, because again, these things are signs of what you mentioned earlier on, emotional intelligence and even maturity, and if there's any sign there that, you know what, I think you overreacted there, but I think we should talk about this. I think these are signs to see or almost feel the temperature, of that other party, to see just how emotionally balanced they are. And we're talking emotional balance here, aren't we? Because again,
and I think this is where being very supportive of each other comes into play.
Yes,
because
of course
this is the reason I say you need to go back when the person is calmer to go and speak to them if you felt there was an extreme overreaction in that, and you didn't feel it. I'm very careful to not just assume this person just blew up like a mad person. If you didn't feel on that extreme reaction, and it was just a reaction that came out of the blue,
but hold on, you sort of like instigated yours knowingly, right?
No, but it wasn't. But I didn't go poking. I was just like, man, we need to argue. We need to be true to each other and actually express. If you don't agree with something, don't just go with whatever you say. Because it was getting to the point where everything he said was right, and I knew deep down, no, I don't think about it, because I didn't want to offend him. And I'm sure I said a few things that he didn't agree with, but because we didn't want to argue, so okay, I agree with you. And I'm thinking, we're not going to live our lives agreeing with each other like, we were born to. Even siblings disagree. Siblings who were raised in the same home disagree. How much more someone that I just met, in my 20s, we would definitely have differences of opinion. So that's where I was coming from. But when I say feeling something, it's when you deliberately go out with an ulterior, not even ulterior, like an evil notion to rile somebody up. Riling somebody up is different to, man, we need to be true. If you don't agree with me on this matter, please express yourself. So if I need to go on and on and let you know why I feel or I did that, you need to understand me, as opposed to, oh no, I don't want to argue with you. Because I've had people who in 12, 14, 15 years of marriage told you they never argued all through their marriage.
Yeah.
So when things started happening, they didn't know how to handle it, because they'd never sat down to say, I don't agree with what you're doing, or I don't agree with what you said. They just, for peace sake, let's just ignore it. Yeah. I can't be bothered, let's just move on. And then it became a problem when other factors in life started creeping in, and they realized that they couldn't express each other's, dissatisfaction or disgruntlement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, to be honest, I was just teasing you a little bit there, but
I know.
I think the bottom
I
line
that some people just enjoy when the whole place is bubbling up with the extreme and negative energy, that things are buzzing. Some people live like that. They just cannot deal with quiet.
They like drama. They like drama.
Yeah.
If there's no drama,
they rile everybody up to make sure there's chaos.
And if there's if there's no drama, they will stir things up for for there to
Exactly.
be
I'm
drama.
glad
And
to
I
see them
think
saying that that is, as long as you're not doing that to rile the other person up.
yeah.
But should you really experience that, it could be a combination of things, because you need to understand. That's why supporting them, should they have had a very difficult background
Mm-hmm.
whereby
Mm-hmm.
things, the way they were treated or the way cases were presented to them. Because if they grew up in an environment where if their parents had a misunderstanding, nobody spoke for a whole week, the whole
Mm-hmm.
house was on fire because mommy and daddy were not on good terms.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally, he or she will struggle with just being calm in the midst of, because they see you as the enemy. So they go on the attack. That I'm not going to stand for this, because that's their orientation. And that's where you need to be honest enough to speak about this thing, talk about these things earlier on. I grew up in an environment where arguing it wasn't the end of the world, which is why I was very open to it.
Absolutely.
I saw it as a healthy thing, that, you allowed my parents to understand each other better. So I seldom heard them arguing about the same thing over, because once they had it out, each person knew where they stood, and they knew, oh, okay, he doesn't like that, she doesn't like that. So it was calmer. So that was the way I saw having a misunderstanding. Let's express our differences, and then we can respect each other's feelings and what each other know, our preferences. So it was from mine was brought, but some just wanted the house, burning down. Something has to be going on, so that
Absolutely.
they know there's life in this environment. And that is not the bit I'm talking about.
So yeah, I think the bottom line really is just to always make that, because this is a discovery, it's courting, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure that, these are some of the tips that I think this is a good tip from the Decrypting Relationship podcast is, we must approach these things like detectives, just sense, transcends the situation going on at that particular time, isn't it? And like you said, support one another, because the environment they grew up in probably shaped the way they responded or react.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Absolutely. Cool. Any other thoughts? Wow, how are we doing for time? The time has flown.
Exactly. I'm just looking at that and thought, oh my goodness. I guess the lesson or the awareness that we're trying to bring to light here is the fact that don't allow the other party's opinion to suppress yours to the point where you're too scared to be true to yourself and express a disagreement. You need to be true to yourself, because if you do not like or you do not appreciate a particular way of behavior or a particular way of this person talking to you or whatever, because it's things like that trigger an argument or a fight. I didn't like the way you treated me. I didn't like the way you talked to me. But if you don't make those things known earlier on in the relationship, they become comfortable with treating you or talking to you like that, because you'd never raised an objection. So in all fairness, you'll then be unfair to them if you then get married and you start nagging them. Oh, now I don't like that. The guys or the girl is like, I used to talk to you like that. I've always talked to you like that. And this is why we're bringing these things to light, to say, please be honest enough to make these things known. Because if you allow them to get comfortable with doing these things, and these things become a natural way of dealing with you, you can't then just get married and start making them an issue to say, oh, well, he doesn't treat me right, or she doesn't respect me, when you never raised any objection to being disrespected whilst you were doing your.
So Olu, is this being assertive? Is this being assertive? Is that what we're talking about? That it's
I don't even think it's being. I don't even think of us. For me, I wouldn't call it assertive. It's just something that you owe it to yourself to be true to yourself. This is just you being true to yourself. Because if I don't like the way you do things around me, and I don't complain now, what right and what fairness would I have to that relationship if I start complaining later? Because
it's like a gentle assertion, because if there is, rather than let the thing fester, you need to speak up, isn't it?
Exactly.
Speak up, deal with it in a calm, mature, healthy way, because we're all
Yeah.
about health. That's what this is all about. How can we foster healthy relationships at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all I'll say. Just be true to yourself. I can't say it enough times. You need to be true to yourself. That worked for me because I've known my husband for in total about 31 years now. And we're still very, very playful around each other. We're not hung up on anything because we always got things sorted. We always talked about things. If I didn't like, he knew when I didn't like anything. And now with maturity, we actually argue less because we've got to the point where we both now respect each other's spaces. We now understand each other's personalities and what will go down well or what will not. So you can imagine if I'd been tiptoeing around this and then now I'm feeling, oh, well, he's so disrespectful. Or some people or someone, maybe my kids are now old and they're thinking, why do you allow daddy to talk to you like that? I'm thinking, oh, that's true. Or,
So what I'm hearing as well is this, when we deal with these conflicts very quickly, and very gently in a nice, maybe not nice, but rational, as fair way, at the end of it, it bonds us, doesn't it? Like you said,
yeah.
You and your husband, Shea, you're closer because of what you've gone through and how you've resolved how effectively you resolve some of these conflicts. And I think it's a good thing. It's a healthy thing. So we shouldn't really run away from it, but we should deal with it with what's the word I'm looking for? We deal with it with a lot of
maturity,
with a lot of wisdom, with a lot of care, isn't it? So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and respect. The fact that you're trying to express yourself doesn't mean you should call the person every derogatory name under the sun for them to listen to you whilst you're trying to tell them they spoke to you somehow, and then you insult them. You insult them to the point where they're so shut down they don't want to hear what you have to say.
Do we have time to deal with that? Because that is a huge topic. Name calling.
Oh yeah. Well, we could extend it since it ties into this and discontinuing this session to broach that. My mind seemed disjointed. So yeah. So I think that's exactly what I've been alluding to by saying don't rile the other person up, because you call your partner every disrespectful and derogatory name under the heavens, and then you say they're mad at you, they speak, they were so whatever, their reaction was just too much, just extreme. And you're thinking, what did you do? What were you doing? Because sometimes we don't say anything. It's our body language. Sometimes it's your body language towards this person, because the way you look at them and make them feel like they're not worth much. These are things that could really bring out that demon, because all of us have the tendency to go mad. Trust me.
Absolutely. We're all open, to insanity.
Exactly. We all have. I think there's a psychological thing that my daughter studied psychology, and there's a statement around the fact that every human being has some level of insanity.
We are prone to.
It's how you handle it.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you're in the wrong environment where you're mixed with a negative energy, even the calmest of people could blow up in a way where everybody, wow.
Absolutely. But I want to go back to the name calling. I think it is critically important to just make that very clear, that name calling is I think maybe I suspect we've mentioned this, that physical violence is just as bad, if not worse. Sorry, emotional and verbal assault is just as bad, if not worse, than physical assault.
Any form of abuse is terrible, whether physical or emotional or mental or however you want to.
No, but I think some people might overlook the verbal assault, because they might just say, "Oh, they might just say, well, I only just said it. I didn't really mean it." So I think we just want to affirm and assert that here on the program that, it's like you said, assault is assault. So name calling is an assault as well. So please,
because it's an attack on the person's personality, and sometimes we say things that make, because you don't know how they process it, And and once those words, that's what we also need to be very mindful of. Once those words are out, you cannot retract them.
You can't.
No
Absolutely
matter what
not.
explanation you gave afterwards, the minute they come out flying out of your mouth, you are done for. So we need to be careful what we say when we're going all over the place to say, I have a right to know, it's my mouth, I can say what. No, you do not have a right to say whatever you like to whomever. You can say whatever you like to yourself, but please, for us not to start dealing with abuse or accommodating abuse in our relationships, you have no right to speak derogatorily to anybody else. Society doesn't allow it, nor the word of God. So there is no basis for it. There is no support system for it. The society is crawling with all sorts of educational venues to let people understand what damage any form of abuse does.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we just want to make it very, very clear that please, if you are in a situation where, there is a lot of verbal abuse, I think, it shouldn't be tolerated at all. It shouldn't be tolerated. It should be dealt with. Whatever way that needs to be dealt with, if it even needs intervention, then please seek intervention of the appropriate intervention. But please, we just want to make it very clear that we're not even going to mention physical abuse because that's just like a no-brainer. But verbal abuse is definitely, there is no excuse for it.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for it. Okay. And I think with that, we'll probably have to sign off for this week.
Yes, we do. So it's been another wonderful time.
Absolutely.
We hope some of the things we've said with a lot of passion, especially hearing it in my voice, and how subtle Tolu was in the background with his very calm and cool voice. I hope the essence of what was being shared was not lost in my emotion. The idea was just to show you how passionate we are about this thing that we talk about, that we don't take them lightly. We've seen marriages destroyed because a lot of the topics that we're talking about were never handled as anything serious. People just thought, we'll just weather things through. We'll just go with the flow. And they got into the flow and they literally capsized because all these things were just coming out of the woodworks, and because they never understood each other enough to deal with it, they became serious issues that broke up, very wonderful marriages that have children. And if these things could be avoided, please talk about these things whilst you're young and you're trying to understand, and most importantly, be true to yourself, because it's in being true to yourself that you can build a solid and healthy relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would like to end by saying, that we all know that relationships, marriage, was designed by God. We are believers in God, designed by God for, to bless us, to give us companionship, to enrich our lives, and, obviously it needs attention. It needs scrutiny every so often. And, so if you're someone who perhaps you fall into that category of, losing your cool, in a conflict situation, we'll just like to encourage you to, have an open mind, humble yourself, and just know that, there is an opportunity here for growth and improvement. That's why we do what we do. That's why we share the insights that we share. And please, if you're in a situation where, you are maybe not being given the kind of respect that you deserve, please talk. Speak, bring it up, be assertive. Don't sweep it under the carpet. Don't stand for it, And so I'd like us to end where we started. So when obviously we are going through like this discovery courting period and we have our first fight, it's a good opportunity to assess how people react to conflict situations, how tense or intense their emotional responses are. And then maybe this will then open up the conversation to deal with what's good and what could be better, So let's keep our relationships healthy.
And just very quickly, you find that once you've broken that ice and you've had the first one, the subsequent, because there'll be many more, the subsequent
guaranteed
ones then just become even unto God knows how many years into the marriage, you'll always have them. So the subsequent ones then become more bearable.
Yes.
Because then you've broken that ice. You're now realizing that you're both human and you do get things wrong. So
Yes.
please, the sooner you got this out of the way, the better, the easier it will be for you to actually be your complete self in that relationship.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I'm going to sign off by saying, please keep yourself, be healthy, keep your relationships healthy, look out for one another. And from Olu,
have a wonderful time and keep your wits about yourself.
yes. Until next time, we would just like to sign off by saying, be good and God bless. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.